for a very similar reason to what I've got up there, actually, there's another method that works exceptionally well, and it's called interactive questioning methods. And I'm going to describe one of them. But before I do, let me just see what we're comparing it with. Let's imagine that these two tables here are my class and I'm a teacher, okay? When I was trained many, many moons ago, I was taught to use what is called question and answer volunteers. I ask a question, a few people put their hands up, I choose one of the people that's put their hands up, they give me their answer, I say well done or not, whatever. The trouble with that, I don't know why it took the researchers so long to work this out. It takes the students about 30 seconds to realise that if they don't bother to put their hand up, they need do nothing. So they just sit there, they think, well, I don't even need to listen to the question because I'm not going to answer it. I'll leave the other bright sparks to do the work, and I'll sit here and I'll think about the back line of Manchester United or whatever it would be. Yeah? So people got going at trying to work out a teaching strategy, a questioning strategy that worked better. And my favourite is one that's called assertive questioning. I should have mentioned at the beginning that all the materials about these methods are going to be emailed. There's going to be an email to you that will tell you where to find it on your intranet. So you all have it. There are some paper copies here, but there'll be everybody will get it. So you'll get the whole caboodle eventually. So the way assertive questioning works is this: I ask a question, and it's a deep, thought-provoking question. Yeah? I ask the students to work in groups of 3, and they know that eventually I will choose who in their threesome will answer for that group. So I might choose them. So working as a threesome, they try to answer the question. When they're a few minutes into it, or a few seconds into it, or whatever, I say, does anybody need help? Does anybody need a bit more time? Hands up if you need a bit of assistance. And when they get the hang of this method, they will put their hand up if they're troubled, because otherwise I can choose them. And I can say, what did your group think? And they're not allowed to say, oh, well, I didn't really understand it. We didn't get it at all. Because then I say, well, you should have owned up, and you should have said right at the beginning that you needed some help. So there's a good way of finding students that need some assistance. They've got to own up, otherwise I can put them on the spot. Yeah? So they'll put their hand up if there's a trouble. Then the students have finished. I'm looking over their shoulders. I'm seeing what they're writing down, perhaps. I can see, that they're more or less ready. So I say, okay, let's get some feedback from you. And I choose a group of 3. Let's say you 3 were working together, and I choose who will answer for that threesome. And I choose somebody, and I say, what did your group think? Okay? She didn't know I was going to choose her, but there was a 1 in 3 chance. And then I might also say, when I get the answer from her, I just say thank you, and that's the most revolutionary word in a classroom. Say thank you, don't evaluate the answer. Yeah, thank you. And you might turn to another person in the same group and say, why did your group think that? And get the justification for that answer. Again, you say thank you, so nobody knows whether that answer is right or wrong. You could now go around and get each threesome, to give their answer separately. But most teachers will then say, anybody else got that answer? Or something very like it. A whole lot of hands go up, probably. Yeah? You could tease out any differences, but you notice that this group, that group, this group, and this group have all have said that's our answer, more or less. So I know that these ones have got a different answer. Okay? So I go to this threesome and I say, could you say what your group's got? Because you've obviously got something different. Get the answer, and I say thank you. And why did your group think that? And now we've got 2 ideas with 2 justifications. And even now I don't say who's right. I say, okay, I want you as a class to agree your answer before I tell you what the right answer is. And so there's discussion now, and you might say, well, we think you're wrong because of da-da-da-da-da. And then you'll say, oh, yes, but what about da-da-da-da-da? And so there's a real good Barney going on here. There's lots of discussion about what the right answer is. I'm earwigging now. By the way, I know, say this is the right answer and that one's the wrong one. I know that 2/3 of the students have got the right answer and 1/3 have not. And I know why as well, because I said, why did your group think that? And I get a load of baloney back. And I think, right, well, I know what to fix there then. And I've got feedback from every single student. I know what every single student thinks. I only asked one, but I knew the other two agreed with it because they worked as a group and they agreed. So I know exactly what everybody thinks. Compare that with question and answer volunteers. I ask a question, so one person puts a hand up, or two or three. I choose one person to give an answer. I know what you think. I haven't got a clue about the rest. Yeah? So I've not got the feedback I need in order. The most important feedback really is to the teacher, because if there's something going wrong, the teacher needs to know and needs to fix. Yeah? So with this assertive questioning, I know what every single student thinks, and I know who's got it right, and I know who's got it wrong, and I can fix it. Because eventually, of course, with this method, I then, once the class has tried to agree at some, so very often, by the way, they correct each other's misconceptions. So you'll say something, when you three will go, oh yeah, you're right. You're allowed to change your mind. It's a blame-free classroom here. There's no humiliation in changing your mind. But once the class have agreed what their answer is, then you chip in and say, well, you're absolutely right when you said this, that, and the other. However, the point you made, common misconception, but So I can now wrap it all up neatly, and I know that everybody's got it. Okay? Very, very powerful teaching strategy for three reasons. One, everybody's doing it. You didn't know who I was going to choose. And I noticed when I used this method that a weaker student turns to the stronger ones and says, what do we think? Why do we think it? Because I bet the bugger asks me. Yeah? So, there's this, and again, if I choose you to give the answer for that group, the other two will be listening very carefully. And you better get it right. Because if you don't, they'll say, that's not what we said. Yeah, they don't want to be misrepresented. So you're forcing people into listening to each other's ideas and coming to an agreement about what the idea is. So you've got very, very high participation rate. It's really hard to be a passenger and not do anything when you use that questioning method. The other thing is, students can correct each other's misconceptions, the simple ones at least. So one person will think, I think the answer to the question is so-and-so, and the other two will say, no, look, there's a minus sign in there, it can't possibly be right. Oh, yeah, you're right. So they'll sort out a lot of misconceptions just amongst themselves, and they'll enjoy doing that too. And also, I get pretty much perfect feedback on what everybody thinks and why they think it. So the misconceptions I discover while I'm teaching. I don't have to wait for the test to come back, for the assignment to come back, to discover that nobody was understanding a word I was saying last Friday. I find out on the Friday that nobody's understanding what I'm saying, and then I say, okay, listen, I'll explain again. And I can explain it another way and so on. So it's immensely important I get this feedback. So everybody's participating, the students can help each other, I get good feedback. It's a much, much more powerful strategy. It takes a wee bit more time than question and answer volunteers. I'm not saying don't use question and answer volunteers sometimes, but this method, very, very powerful. There are other methods that are also interactive. In the notes you'll find out about them. There's a version of this for maths teachers. And what it involves is the students are asked to do a problem, and then the teacher looks over the shoulders and notices that this student's got a solution, fairly conventional methodology. This student over here has got another solution. She's done it in an unusual way, but it's perfectly legitimate. Yeah, perfectly legitimate, but it's a completely different methodology. And this student has made the same mistake as almost all of the other people that have got it wrong. So half the class have got it like that. So at the end, you say, okay, could you put your solution on the board? Could you put your solution on the board? Could you put your solution on the board? And you have three solutions and nobody knows which one's right. Okay? And then you say, well, what do you think of those? Yeah? And the students now have to comment on the mathematical validity of the methodology and where the error is and whether it isn't. And you get wonderful feedback. So one student says, that -7 is wrong, it should be +7. And you say, that's interesting, why do you think that? And you give an explanation. And then I say, who agrees with him about that? And I know he's hit the nail on the head, but I want to know whether all the rest of you have realised he has. And if some people say, no, we don't agree, I think I've got some work to do with you. Yeah? So it's exactly the same methodology, really, but it's done, and it's all written up in your notes. It's called student demonstration. And incidentally, when we go to Hungary, that does really, really well in maths teaching, in international comparisons, they use that method all the time. Students putting solutions on the board and the class are talking about them. Yeah? Students have got to think like mathematicians, and you know, the discussions that we're talking about here develop vocationally relevant thinking skills or academic thinking skills. Okay, over to you. Could you make use of assertive questioning or some other adaptation of it to make sure that you get really good feedback, that the students get a chance to help each other, and that everybody's participating? Okay, so over to you. Could you make use of assertive questioning? Just give you a minute. Okay, a minute.